Welcome to the CEO Project Podcast, where Jim Schlexer, author of the best-selling book, Great CEOs Are Lazy, and the founder of the CEO Project, provides ideas and tools to help CEOs of mid to large-sized companies grow and optimize their businesses. Now, let's get started with the show. Hey, everybody, I'm Jim Schlexer. Welcome to the CEO Project Podcast. Well, real estate is a topic that we're all involved in, probably whether we want to or not. We own real estate, we rent real estate, maybe have a second house. I mean, it is part of our lives, and we don't think about it as a business, but it is a very big and very important business. And my guest today is really an expert on this particular topic. So Kimber Menkiti is an accomplished leader in the real estate industry with over 16 years of experience. She's the president of Keller Williams Capital Properties, is in the DC area where I live, and MG Residential Team, overseeing 4,000 or more agents as a regional director for Keller Williams Maryland, DC region. She serves as NAR's 2023 broker relations liaison on the Bright MLS board of directors and is involved in several community organizations. Welcome, Kimber.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today.
I'm super excited about this because, like I said, real estate's part of all our lives, and we just maybe don't think about it, and we certainly don't have the expertise you do. So, super excited. So, just 4,000 agents. How the heck do you keep all those cats in one bag? How do you manage such a distributed and kind of entrepreneurial group of people?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm part of Keller Williams, which is the largest sort of franchise model in the country for brokerages. And so we have 4,000 agents across the state of Maryland and the District of Columbia across 17 offices. So I have the opportunity to both be the president and CEO of Keller Williams Capital Properties. And so we have 6 of those, right, that we directly own and operate. And then I work on the regional side to support the other operators and owners of the remaining offices. So it's
so you own the local franchise with those 6 offices, and then
I do
kind of support corporate, if you will, by managing the other ones because there's nobody else there.
Well, there's leaders there, but I'm sort of the liaison between corporate and those offices as well. So I sort of had dual roles, right, as a CEO and operator, and then supporting our other local operators in the area.
And are those company stores, or are those also franchises, but just smaller regions?
That's right. So all of ours are independently owned and operated. So there's no company stores. They're all independent entrepreneurs who own those offices, and then they support their local agents.
Okay. So, I mean, probably some of the people in the who are listening own or are thinking about franchises. And always the question is, why do a franchise, right? I mean, like, I'm going to argue if I went and got my real estate broker's license, I could open up a real estate office and start doing what you guys do. So why would you want to be in a franchise model and, you got to pay a VIG up to the parent, right? So why
a royalty, right?
What's the pickup for you to do a franchise versus doing it on your own?
Yeah, so we launched the franchise back in 2006. And part of that was systems and models. Gary Keller, who is sort of recognized as one of the most influential people in the industry for many, many years. And he wrote a book called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, still one of the #1 best-selling books on the real estate industry and really practice of real estate ever. And so that book really solidified, hey, these are the real models and systems, moving from just sort of being a hobbyist real estate agent to really being an entrepreneur, a business owner, treating it like a business, having systems. And so for us, that kind of became really very attractive. Hey, there's these systems and models for how to operate your business, how to set it up, how to have the structure, how to make sure it's profitable, how to grow it. Everything from our hiring systems, from our tools, from our talent, right? Building out our leaders. So that was definitely very, very attractive in the beginning. And I think a big accelerant for our growth in the DC market.
Yeah. Well, and I think having systems delivered to you like that improve your probability of success.
Exactly.
That's so important. Yeah. So if you're if you just want to increase your probability of success, you pay for a model that is a known good model and you just plug into it and then go work your butt off, obviously, but still. So it feels like talent is a really critical issue here, right? Because you're very dependent on the people in the field. And, we all know the Chardonnay neighbor of ours that decided to become a real estate agent, right? Like, how do you think about and yet I know people that are very professional and sell tens and tens of millions of dollars of real estate a year. how do you think about, how do you attract the right kind of people that you want for your particular organization?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think really being clear, one of the things that I think differentiated the model is it really attracted people who wanted to own a business. Like
Huh.
they wanted to have a business plan. They wanted to be an entrepreneur. We really got very focused. In my background is in social work and education. So being a social entrepreneur, seeing real estate as a catalyst for impacting communities
Yep.
and development, and like all just being, in DC for the last 20 years, it's been a big driver of that. So I think a lot of who we attract are the high performing entrepreneurs who are like, I see this as a vehicle to build a business to continue to do other things. So a lot of our folks right there, I say they're reformed attorneys. they're coming out of in DC, like they're coming out of all sorts of government fields. They're coming out of sectors that are really, we've got accounting and finance. Like they're coming out of really high performing roles, but they want an opportunity to take their knowledge, take their interest, and make a run at building their own businesses. So that's a
And
lot of who we attract.
so you don't employ these individuals. They're all 1099 to you. So they'll have an LLC or something that's Jim Schlexer Properties, and I happen to be affiliated with you guys. Is that
That's right.
right?
And so we're
Okay.
running, I mean, that's right. So we've got 10 physical locations that we lead and own. So I have a staff that then supports the agents on the ground. So I've got, you're right, a W-2 incredible team that leads them and supports them and helps drive value to their businesses. And then you have, right, in the DC metro, we've got about 1,100, and then the broader market 4,000. So our asset has feet, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
they are every day you are making sure that you're delivering value, or there's somebody else across the street who might be delivering better.
Yeah, I mean, I could throw a softball and hit a real estate agent. I mean, they're
Absolutely.
everywhere.
They're everywhere, and brokerages are everywhere. And now
Yeah,
there's virtual models, brick and mortar models. Like there's lots of different options for them. People who pay them to come and
yeah,
hang at their
yeah.
shop. So defining value has been a big part of building the business.
So let's talk about that. When you try to differentiate in a very crowded market, to your point, how do you differentiate? If you said you want to come to us because of blah blah blah, what are those? Or we solve the problem for this kind of client better than anybody else on the planet. What are those differentiators that you point to?
Yeah, I mean, number one is definitely the impact driven entrepreneur, like the
Mm,
entrepreneur who really wants to see real estate as a catalyst for impact, social change, community impact. Like that's a critical driver. Like we shut down all of our offices. We volunteer together. Our top 5 agents all have launched foundations where they are
nice.
directing resources back in. We have a foundation we have $50 of every single one of our transactions goes into the foundation so that we can support the communities where we live and work. So that's a big differentiator for us, is like, hey, this is what we want you to be an entrepreneur. We want you to build a business. We do business planning. We talk about their goals. We set goals, right? And so we're not a place where if you just want to have part-time, kind of, I do real estate on the side, sell a house a year, we're probably not the right fit for you.
And
Like we're bringing people who are really looking at doing this at a very high level and building out a large business
now,
inside.
what if somebody tries it? I was a high level, I'm an SES1 or to whatever. I'm a high level government employee, and I decide I want to do real estate for all those reasons you talked about, and I kind of stink at it. Does the compensation plan effectively do the management for you? Like they're not making any money, so they leave, or is there some other? Do you go, hey, listen, Bob, this isn't for you? How does that go down?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mix. I mean, real estate is such an aspirational career, right? We
Yeah,
heard lots of stats, certainly as the industry has shifted, as the market has shifted. You look up and only 30% of realtors sold a house that are
yeah,
licensed in
yeah,
2024 actually
yeah,
sold a house. And while that seems staggering, it's pretty consistent. Like it's
yeah,
actually pretty consistent. So people do hold licenses for all the reasons, right? I might buy an investment property. My mom might sell her house, and then I want to get the commission.
yeah,
A lot of them are referral agents. And so if the cost benefit, right, they pay a couple $1,000s a year to keep the license active, if that makes sense for them on the opportunity that maybe they'll close that transaction. So if we've got people that just sort of are shadow, like we call them, like our shadow agents, they're kind of there and they're paying their fees. They might be showing up to a training. We'll hold them on our books, but certainly like we're encouraging them. We want you to come to a training. We're going to try to get you into production. We want to connect you. The team culture and brokerage is exploding. So teams
yeah.
are really running these large businesses, and then they are almost mini brokerages inside of our shop, right? We've got some of the largest in the city that are our partners. So those that's sort of also a model. I'm not having success on my own. This is harder than I thought being an entrepreneur. We say they become like intrapreneurs. And so they can join a large team that can help them with leads, back office support. Like they kind of run what were the old days of mom and pop brokerages, sort of
Yep.
today are like the modern day real estate sales
Yeah.
team.
And those are all the names, right? Those are the people with the
That's right.
billboards and the big, yeah, okay.
That's
Um,
exactly right.
so just going to the other side. So I get the value to a customer. Well, that's a value to an agent. You want to be socially
Mhm.
motivated. What's the value to a customer to come to you versus anybody else?
It's really interesting. So KW went to market, even 30 years ago, which is sort of a very differentiated philosophy. It used to be that, hey, the broker was king. And so the name on the sign was really who the consumer was looking to work for.
Yeah.
KW kind of flipped that model around and said, no, actually, like Jim, they want to work with you. They want to work
Yeah.
with Jim's real estate team. He's the neighbor, he's the boots on the ground, he's who they know. And they could care less whether he's at, XYZ brokerage. And so they said, hey, put your name as big as your state licensing laws will allow, put our name the smallest. It was sort of turned the
Hmm.
perspective on its head because it said, you are the agent entrepreneur. The consumer works with you. We want you to have the best experience. You create that. We're going to empower the agent to create that best value so that the consumer is not saying, I'm coming to work with the big, like Keller Williams Capital Properties first, and then you come tell me which agent is best.
Yep.
So it's just a very different philosophy. You're seeing a lot more brokerages today have adapted that
Yeah.
philosophy, but KW was sort of the first to market. And it was very disruptive because people were like, what do you mean? Like, it's not just the big name of the big brand broker.
Got it. So this is more personality driven. I like that guy, that gal. I want to work with them, and I have the opportunity to do so because they're front and center as a buyer, as a seller of my house, let's say, right?
That's right. Like their value proposition and we're powering them. So we're saying,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
here's the technology, here's the tools, here's the, client experience that you can plug into, and we'll make sure that you can deliver it. But you agent are the one it's your business. You're going to decide what your local value proposition is. And you see that, right? People say like,
Hmm.
hey, I really service the military community. I
Yeah.
service a senior population, and they get in and they really build a niche around that community, a condo building in the city. And then they're like, hey, I'm the expert right here in this niche. And you need that, right? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the generalist real estate agent is probably not your best choice, like in
Yeah,
most
yeah.
things.
Well,
Yeah.
and in this area, I do 2 million, 5 million, $10 million I'm high end, and I know the people that buy them, and I know the people that sell them. That's a very specific space.
It is. And
Let
we're so
let
tight, right? We're 3 states. So you got to be
I know.
licensed. I mean, like I'm not going to be able to help you as well in Leesburg or Baltimore. And so like, I've got to know my geography and then be
Yep.
able to have good network to refer you when you need a connection somewhere else.
So, maybe a couple things that legally have happened to real estate agents. Like there are limits on what you can say about a place nowadays. If I ask, even questions about the school. Are the schools good here? Well, let me get you a report. You can look it up yourself. Like they can't represent almost anything. Is that constraining? Because I always said, well, geez, you're getting turned into a high-priced taxi driver. I mean, how can you add value when you're really constrained on what you're able to say to somebody about a place? You're forcing them to
Yeah.
do all their own research, right?
Yeah, I think good agents and a lot of our agents do a good job of asking the right questions so that they
Yep.
can introduce you to areas that meet your needs. So
Got
they
it.
can't, when you're in an area, it
Uh,
becomes hard. And that's really, those are fair housing laws,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
we
No, I
are,
get
like,
it. I
right, all
get
those
it.
regulations. But it's a good, if you're asking the right questions, then when I say,
Uh,
hey, where do you want to be close to work? Do you close to walking distance to a school? Do you want to be this? Do you want to have that? Like, so we're asking all those questions. And then that allows us to sort of build out
got it.
hey, because a lot of times we kind of know the neighborhoods, we do a lot of work we started in Brooklyn in Northeast DC. And at the time, you certainly imagine 20 years ago, people thought we were in Brooklyn, New York. They were like,
Nah.
where are you? And so
Yeah.
when we would introduce people and they would describe what they were looking for, and we're like, have you ever thought about this neighborhood called Brookland? And they were like, where are you
Yeah.
talking about? So I think it creates an opportunity for the agent to really know the areas that you're looking in and introduce you to locations that might not be part of
Got it.
somebody's
So it
search.
looks like
Yeah.
you flipped it. Instead of causing the client to ask the questions, you do, and then you guide them to a place that meets those needs. It's a little different.
That's right. Yeah. I mean,
So,
and I'm always encouraging, like, yes, it's great to go to great schools, but it's also great to go to your local community's Facebook page because that'll tell you everything you need to know. Right. So
yeah,
I'm like,
exactly.
good and bad, right? We all know that our local pages hold nothing back. So
Yeah,
sometimes we're
yeah.
just like, hey, check out, here's the 5 places that these people are going to tell you everything you need to know about your neighborhood. Well, more than I could
Good.
anyway. So yeah.
Nice. So what about commissions? So there were some recent court decisions about,
Some big
main.
class action lawsuits.
Yep. And so now it's a standard commission rate, blah, blah, blah. That kind of went away. What has that done to your, well, both to sort of what people are paying and the economic model for your business? What has been the impact for you? I've never really heard what that did. I haven't heard of like all these real estate organizations going out of business. So you must have figured out a way around this. But what happened?
Yeah, I mean, you are seeing a lot of consolidation for sure.
Okay.
So you are right. We're seeing some pretty significant consolidation, and bigger players, right? Keller Williams actually just brought in a significant private equity investor, that Stone Point Capital. So it's just, it's definitely a different time in the market, and a lot of that's because the checks were, when you're writing $100 million plus check, that impacts the economics. So I think the big brokerages took probably the biggest hits. Certainly, obviously, the National Association took a big hit. And what it did was, I think it forced a different type of conversation at the table.
Right.
So
Right.
people that are performing at a high level in the industry, like in some of them, right, they are continuing to excel, and it has had very little impact to the economics.
So they're still collecting 6% if you include both sides.
So it's all negotiable.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, they are defining a fee that is the fee for their service, that is the compensation that they would receive. And then that's, then the seller gets to decide, hey, do I
Yep.
want to offer something to help incentivize the buyer to come into my property? That looks very different when we're in the market of today versus the market of 2021, 22. And right there, we had 50 offers on a house before it even hit the market. So
Yeah.
it's sort of allowing a lot more, it has elevated the conversation for both sides. And I think education of consumers to say, hey, what am I getting from this agent? Because
Yeah.
they're all
So
different. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so the tip should be, if you're going to go sell your house, probably particularly if it's a high value house, negotiate that rate and figure out what services, just like you would any consultant, basically.
Just like you
You're
would.
going to do a
Absolutely.
job for me. What's the job worth? And I may bid a couple people against each other, right?
Absolutely. And the value's not the same. So
Right.
like, what are you going to provide? Do you bring in furniture to my house? Do you stage it? Do you sit at the open houses? Do you bring buyers by? Do you walk through every single showing? Like all of those things are really important,
Yeah.
to then decide what's the value. And we find that, consumers like choice. A lot of our agents are offering menus of services. So here's model A, B, C based on, how involved you want to be. Sometimes people throw us the keys and they're like, see you later. I don't want to think
Yeah.
about it,
Yeah.
especially in the DC market. You can imagine, right?
Yeah.
Like they
Yeah.
got a lot
Yeah.
going on.
My
So
guy,
it
my
just
guy or
depends.
gal just didn't get reelected. I'm out of here, right? See
That's
ya.
right.
Yeah.
Take the house. Take the house. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This is very akin to hiring an investment banker then, because the investment bankers come in and go, hey, there's a
100%.
standard commission, but there isn't. And you want to look at
Hmm.
what are they going to do versus the money you got to spend to get your company sold. It's the same conversation. But most people, I mean, people who listen to this podcast are probably mostly sophisticated enough to do that. Your normal person just selling a house probably isn't. Like this is not in their wheelhouse. They're not business people. They're not used to negotiations of this nature. And so it's got to be an interesting conversation, I guess, is maybe the point.
It is. And even thinking about like your audience as a CEO, like you might need a commercial space. You're going to need like and like anything, right? We have attorneys that are going to help us for our
Yeah.
employment needs. We do too, right? Like we've got attorneys that are helping us for different things. I have a general counsel who helps me generally and points me in the right direction. But when I've got an issue in the company, right, like I've got to address it, in that specialization. I think the real estate industry is the same thing.
Go on.
And then being
Interesting.
able to understand like how those investment decisions, are you negotiating, a option to buy on a commercial property that's part of your lease. So if the landlord's going to sell, as like that's a significant asset of your business. So we're thinking about those things even in the brokerage, right? We own half of the buildings that our offices are in
Yep.
because, right, like we have physical locations. And so just thinking about the other ways that we're building the business so that it continues to be successful for many
Yep.
years to come.
Got it. Interesting. Hmm. So interest rate and demand. Interest rates are still pretty high, and I expected to see this massive decrease in housing prices as a result of that, right? Because people buy a payment, they don't buy a
Mhm.
house when they have
That's right.
well, at least when they have a mortgage. But that hasn't happened. Not really. So
No.
Please explain this to me.
Like, what is going on?
I
Some of
know.
that,
Like, I got to call my economics professor and say you were all wrong.
uh-huh, yeah, no, it's wild. I think part of it is that um, people have more equity than they've ever had before because they have these low rates. So there hasn't been, I mean, pent up demand is very, very real. And you're seeing that show up today because people just, like we called it rate lock. Like
Yeah.
they were just so into the, like that rate was just so good. Like they
Oh,
were like,
my,
there's
my
no
last
way I'm
mortgage was
giving it
like 2.8%. It was free money, essentially. It was
free
crazy.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even when life might um, indicate that you should move, like it's sort of like, ugh, I just not, right? Or
Yeah.
if I am, I'm going to keep that property and make it a rental, an investment versus maybe before I would have sold it. But now I'm like, gosh, it's going to cash flow. I'm going to just keep it. And so that also like constricts demand and just inventory that's available. And so then,
Right.
we have that challenge. So I think it's been this interesting world. I think we are seeing that stabilization. You are seeing price reductions. A third of all homes on the market have had a price reduction. That's an like it's not the our expectations if you were in the market in the recession, right? That like that we just saw prices just diminishing so significantly. We're not going to
Hmm.
see that, right? And part of that's because you don't have there's not this market of foreclosures. There's not this market of people are not in situations that where financially they have to make these massive reductions to leave. So that means they have other options, right? We have sellers
Yeah.
who are like, you know what, I'm going to hold it and rent it for a little while, or I don't have to move. Now, our market will be interesting to watch, certainly with the contraction of the federal workforce and what that is
Yeah.
going to do. We're already seeing that, right? We're definitely more housing is coming on as a result of people exiting the market.
Well, and I've heard of people trying to preemptively, they go, it's going to crash. I'm
Mhm.
getting out before the crash happens. So I don't know
Yeah.
if they're right or wrong, but they're trying to preemptively get off out of real estate in this local geography, expecting Doge to just. But what's funny is I think people forget government employees are all across the country. Like
Yes.
there's plenty in Oklahoma City and St. Louis and they're more here than other places, but I'm not sure it's a real issue.
I don't think it is. And we're seeing it, right? Like I like to call it, we have this shadow buyer inventory. Like you
Um,
and I probably know people who would have moved had there been the right house in the right neighborhood that they
mhm.
wanted to be in. And so they had the cash, they've been sitting on it, they've been waiting. And so I know I've got a lot of people who are like in my own neighborhood that are like, okay, so it's time. You think I could really get into the neighborhood now? And
Yeah.
so that just makes it like that much more challenging. We're still seeing multiple offers on a number of neighborhoods in the DC market. So I think we're still pretty protected
Yep.
despite everything that's going on.
But
Yeah.
you usually in a tough market, that's like perfect house, perfectly redone in a great neighborhood. Like all the arrows are pointing up and to the right, and those are the ones that get the demand. It's very bimodal, I think, right? When a market is tough, they
Yes.
do okay. When a market is good, they do even better. When the market is tough, you're in your down market, meaning it needs a little work or it's not in the best neighborhood. Those are the ones that get crushed in these kinds of markets
They do.
because I can wait. I don't have to buy now. Let's go
That's
to
right.
the other side. I mean, the Fed didn't move down interest rates, and I know, the Fed fund rate and mortgage rates aren't correlated perfectly, but there is a correlation at some level, maybe not perfect. So let's say interest rates start coming down. That's kind of my expectation over the next 2, 3 years. They're
Yep.
going to get a little more reasonable. They may never get to my good old 2.8%,
They will
but
not.
well, no, don't tell me that. I want to hear
Sorry.
that. But they
I don't
might
know that
get.
we'll see that again in our lifetime, but
Dang,
maybe.
should have bought more real estate.
Sorry. We all should have bought a lot more real
Yeah.
estate.
But it might be 4 or 5, 5.5, whatever. Is that going to cause a spike in real estate prices? Now, just go to the other side. My economics professor would say higher rates, prices go down, which didn't happen. But then lower rates, prices should go up theoretically. Do you believe that might happen? And I know you're crystal balling it right now. I know that, but
Yeah. I mean, I spent a lot of time in this space, right? Especially from making sure our agents are really well informed. We always talk about them. It's important to be your local economist of choice and sitting on our Bright MLS board, which is the second largest board, MLS board in the country. So it's interesting to sort of constantly be looking at all of this data. And part of, we were in just a really challenging time, but there wasn't enough inventory. And
mm,
so this like limited inventory, driving prices, constricting demand, like all of these things were kind of the perfect storm. I think actually where we're in today, while maybe doesn't feel great, is actually a much healthier place from a real
hmm,
estate housing market. And so I think it does allow us to see just like more availability, more options, buyers not feeling this frantic frenzy to like have to make a decision super fast. And so having it having 4 or 5 months of supply, not the end of the world. That's actually a balanced market. And that's a
Wow.
good thing for all of us. It's a good thing for the economy. We're not going to see prices bottom out. We're not going to see massive contraction in pricing, which is important, right? Housing is the number one driver, real estate number one driver of wealth in the country. So like those things are all important. It's still a stable asset. It's still an
Yeah.
asset that's going to appreciate. And then the magic number, 6%, right? Like everyone said, that's sort of where people tend to, at least, right? Everyone's saying that's the magic number. People are like, buyers like, we're getting off. But we today, I know we're going to run this a little bit later, but as of middle of May, we're 15 weeks in a row of an increase in mortgage applications. So not mortgages being submitted, but mortgage apps, meaning buyers are, right? More buyers over the last 15 weeks have submitted mortgage applications than this time last year. That's a great sign, right? More buyers in the marketplace, a good sign.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it feels like what's going on, but it's a really good thing from a housing standpoint.
And are there 4 to 6 months of inventory?
In some market, yeah, some parts of the market for sure.
Wow. That's
DC condo market still painful, right? Painful. Yeah.
meaning low
Just
supply,
a lot of inventory.
high supply.
High supply and a lot of shadow inventory. A lot of our developers holding their stuff, renting it because they were not able to. The numbers aren't working. So that's still a challenge. But we are seeing people coming back into the city, right? Needed to be closer in. We're living out a little further. Frederick didn't last for long, as we saw.
Well, it worked for COVID, right? Your 2,000 square foot apartment was tough during COVID, but your 4,000 square foot house in Leesburg was great. And
that's right. We all thought we were going to go to Ocean City, so everyone got their second home condos and realized they're not actually going to Ocean City as much as they thought. So like that market, we're seeing a lot more inventory there. So just I think people sort of recalibrating to sort of the new reality of both our market and what's required from a housing standpoint.
So what is if you said, Jim, I'm going to try to double my business, what is the thing that would stop you from doing that? What is the point of constraint that like, I got to bust this thing open to double the size of my business? What do you think that is in this business? Is it double the number of agents or is it something else?
For me personally, it's agent count is the lead domino for us, right? Like it really is. Like it's just a numbers game in the sense that like, because you're going to have, like we've got this incredible group of like 20 somethings who are crushing the market, have built $20 million plus businesses at 23 and 24, like just incredible, leveraging technology in ways that it would shock you. So that piece of like, right, for us, it's always, if there's one North Star, it's agent count. Like we're driving agent count. When I talk to my agents and I'm coaching my agents on how to double their business, it's that success is simple, not easy. Like it is the consistency. It is not there's a million shiny objects. It's like, actually just do the thing. It's your database. It's your relationships. It's being consistent with them. Like that's it, right? Like that is the secret sauce. And so we mirror that at the brokerage. Like I always tell them, I'm running the largest team. My team's bigger than yours, right? Like I run the largest team. Like we sold over $2 billion of real estate last year. It's a lot of real estate. And that's all done because we have a strong team. We're focusing on them, how to drive productivity and profitability. And that ultimately helps them build real long-term businesses.
That's fun. Are these businesses saleable? Brokerages? I mean,
brokerages are 100.
There's no recurring revenue. I mean, it's like you are what you ate yesterday, basically, and then tomorrow you could be at a zero if nobody showed up at work. So they're saleable. You could actually sell a brokerage.
100%, yeah, 100%, and pretty, more challenging today. But 5 years ago, you had a lot of players coming in. You've got private equity coming in today. You've got technology companies. I mean, you just saw Rocket, right, acquire Redfin for north of $2 billion.
Yep.
So these are not small numbers, right? Like they're coming in, and a lot of real estate brokerages. We had a number of people that were backed by capital markets, and they were buying real estate brokerages and teams for significant 7-figure plus 8-figure multiple like numbers. So they're sellable. The future is certainly the services. I think what we're seeing is that mortgage and insurance and title all see the pathway through to the consumer through the real estate agent. And so that idea of like, how do you have to own multiple businesses? So we own a title company, we own a mortgage company, we own an insurance company, and all of those are the core services that are providing high level services to our agents and ultimately to the consumer. So you have to stack it, and then you actually have a very we are in acquisition mode. So, I just acquired a business, another office up in Baltimore, I paid, not quite 7 figures, but I paid a big number. So, and that's with an asset of 200 agents that all have feet. So,
wow.
But the opportunity, the transaction count, the market share were all important components.
Interesting. Well, cool.
Yeah.
I know you work a lot, but what do you do for fun, Kimber?
I know I have 4 incredible boys.
Nice.
So that I have 2 that are big ice hockey fans. So we spend a lot of time at ice hockey rinks. That's a big one. And then I do a lot of one of my passion areas is helping to drive wealth for entrepreneurs, particularly women. So I have an organization and a podcast, Empire Builders, that we spend a lot of time helping to help female entrepreneurs build wealth.
Nice. Oh, that's fabulous. And if people wanted to get a hold of you, maybe there's some people in the DC area listening to this. How would they do that? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can definitely follow me on Instagram, Kimber Menkiti, KYMBERMENKITI, and we'd love to connect. And I'm excited for this opportunity and this conversation. I love that you're doing this.
Well, thanks, Kimber. Thanks for the time. I really appreciate it. It was great.
You too. Thanks, Jim.
And for everybody listening, we'll see you next time on the CEO Project Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening to the CEO Project Podcast. We'll see you next time. Be sure to subscribe to get all the future episodes and check out our website, www.theceoproject.com.